One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it while they both get drunk.
All right, welcome to a special final edition of our specialist series of special episodes for our special listeners on Band of Brothers, the most badass World War II, I don't even know what you'd call it.
Miniseries?
Biopic series? Miniseries? Yeah.
It's more
it's
like
kind of a biopic, right?
It's like a big biopic, yeah, where it's like just like the whole essence of a, company, a bunch of guys, not just one guy.
It's more of a bioepic, if you will.
Yeah. You know what? I think, we can just end it right there because that was perfect. A bioepic.
I think I'm going to go ahead and drop my mic. I probably shouldn't. I spent some money on it.
I've literally never heard that before, and it's perfect for this show. Bioepic.
See, the problem is I just started this episode on such a high note. There's no way I can live up to that standard.
Yeah, I think it's all downhill from here. So click off now if you're ready to go. That's all you wanted to hear.
Right. Just get out. Oh yeah, and it sucks not really being able to do my standard intro on this episode because this is one guy's seen it, where usually one guy's seen it. We have both seen this show multiple times and just really love it and want to talk about it with you guys, which leads me to my first point, which is something that I honestly can't believe, and I feel like a fraud. Like I feel like a Schadenfreude. I feel like a fraudster. What's the German word for fraud? For fraudulent menace?
Schadenfreude.
I don't even know. Schadenfreude? I am yo soy Schadenfreude, Sumner.
You're blending of worlds and cultures.
I can almost guarantee that I have never seen the last episode of Band of Brothers.
Really? Oh.
I don't know how it happened. I was sitting there watching it, and every scene that passed, I realized I had never seen this scene before. Oh, I've never seen this scene before.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I saw it once the first time, and it was just so long ago.
Right.
But I had no recollection of that entire last episode. So it was actually really exciting. Well, I mean, there's some sad things happening, but it was very exciting for me as a fan to realize that I had not seen that episode.
And honestly, I feel like that's one of the best episodes of the series, if for different reasons than like some of the combat-heavy episodes.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I feel like a fraud. I feel like I've betrayed you.
No, I mean, like, that's one, like, I never put on heavy rotation because it's so heavy, and like it's really just the winding down of the thing, and that's the way I remember it. But like rewatching it these last couple times, I was blown away by like how much like character depth there is in that episode. Like I wrote down so many things about that episode, more than like 8 and 9, I think.
It really leaned into it, and you know what? It made me excited for this is such a dumb thing because this game is literally ruining my life. I don't know if you're still playing Baldur's Gate almost every day.
Yeah, sure am, yeah.
So are we, and the attachment, the irrational attachment that Kaylee and I have toward these NPCs and characters that are not real people is just getting completely out of hand. And
I just finished Act 1. It's already like unhealthy, I feel like.
Yes! Oh, I can't wait to talk about it when we're not on this podcast and wasting people's lives. But
I know you didn't come here to hear about nerd shit. Sorry.
Yes, they did. That's the only reason anybody would be here. But yeah, so when I have a feeling that at the end of this game, there's gonna be a similar experience to what you get in that last episode of Band of Brothers,
right?
Where you just get all these wonderful character, even though it's not even character arc wrap-ups, it's just what it's what actually happened and what they did with their lives.
Yeah,
but
it
just
kind
made
of like
me dread.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It just made me realize that this is so dumb. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
We can move on.
Well, no, you can't leave me high and dry like that. I was waiting.
No. I just mean, like, I know that the character wrap-ups are coming for Baldur's Gate, and I'm not looking forward to it. Just like it was very sad in this show. They're not even related.
Yeah.
These are two completely unrelated topics. There's no reason for me to be
It's just
talking
like the
about Baldur's
investment
Gate
of
right now.
investment of
Yeah.
time, and like you don't want to see it.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say, but my brain isn't awake yet.
Yeah, and it's just like, and that's a thing too. Like when the show ends, like I was so sad that, because I know we were talking about, I was like, okay, we got to wrap this up. You know, we've done this for 4 episodes now. But honestly, when I finished the 10th episode and realized we were going to talk about it, I was really sad. I was like, I just want to keep talking about it. Like, it's fun and it's enjoyable. And like, you know, I don't know about for the right reasons. It's just like really, it's entertaining, but it's also fascinating. Like you just can't, I don't know. But all the guys are written really well, and the whole show is written really well. It's just like, shit, I don't know if I'm going to see another show of this quality ever again in my life, kind of thing. At least is the way I felt when I finished it.
I agree. And it's tempting to not, it's tempting to not just want to jump straight into the Pacific the way that they set you up.
I know. Because they kind of leave
really
like
tempting.
Yeah, because they leave it because they're like supposed to go to Japan like right afterwards, which is but we'll save that for when we get to 10. But we'll start with 8.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do it. You kick things off. We're on what episode 8, The Last Patrol.
Yes, which I think on the Band of Brothers subreddit that I follow, I know people tend to view this episode as more of a filler episode. They're like, you know, it's
Really?
Yeah, and you know, I personally don't get it, but I think the height of episode 7, which has so much going on, it's like the end of Bastogne. You see some major characters, you know, either die or get taken off, and like you're like, oh shit, where are we now, kind of thing, and it's like leaves you on a real like, oh shit, like want to see where this goes. And then episode 8 is just kind of like, it's a really somber realization that the war is over, pretty much. Like there's not much time, and everybody knows it, and now we're kind of in the wrap up phase. But I really enjoyed this episode for those reasons, because I don't think that part of the war gets talked about that much. So I just think this episode's really interesting, and I love Webster's, because I think a lot of his monologues are taken directly from his book. So a lot of his speeches, I think, or his monologues are from his book, which I think elevates some of the writing, which is very different from a lot of the other episodes. Like he's more of an outsider, especially in this episode. He's not like, he's been with them the whole time, but he's never really been like a part of like the whole thing. So I don't know. I think this episode's really great, in my opinion. It's very condensed and very focused.
I'm inclined to agree with you, like 200%. I don't see the filler episode comments at all. Like this is. Well, first of all, how can you possibly say that something is filler when it's just what happened? But I also understand.
Exactly.
I understand fans are talking more about like, oh, well, it feels like it's ramping down. It's like, well, okay, yeah, because it did.
That's exactly what happened.
Also, but also it's like you can't. I mean, what do you want? Like 5 episodes on Bastogne? Like you can't. You know, it has that battle had to end, and these guys had to move on to the next phase of the war, the next thing. So
yeah, and I think
that's stupid. I think there was almost more going on in this episode. At least like character development and like the different types of. This is something I talked about on the last episodes. Like I love the different perspectives of each type of soldier that you get, and what each individual soldier's experience and journey could have potentially been like, and you get a couple of totally new situations. Like I think that's why every episode feels so fresh. Is it's like if it was just following the same group of guys going through battle after battle after battle after battle, like I feel like it just wouldn't work. The show wouldn't work. You need the different perspectives and to see a full picture of the war. You know what I mean? And every perspective is just as important.
Yeah, you need that variation of not only like experiences, but opinions and ways of thinking, and like different elements of where they were particularly involved. Because I think in the show you get the perspective that like, of like this small company, but there were hundreds and hundreds of guys. Like it was a big company of dudes. So there's tons of different things going on at once.
Yeah, man. And I know that we've had, we obviously had an episode called Replacements that sort of focused on what the new guys that show up have to deal with. Yeah. But this is a unique perspective that so many guys went through that is focused on with Webster in this that people probably don't talk a lot about. It's like, okay, well, what happens if you're there and then you're not, and then you're there again with the same group of guys? Yeah. How are they going to act toward you? How is that brotherhood affected? And what are the caveats and notches in the belt that are necessary to maintain respect from your guys? Like this, I felt like there was so much packed into this episode, and like Webb's. I mean, I almost want you to guide us through it because I'll just ramble if you let me. But
no, that's good.
I just thought it was so awesome how Webster, and I almost don't even. It's sort of a moment at the end of the episode that I loved so much. But and I can only start there and we can backtrack. But it's just when Webster realizes, kind of toward the end of the episode, that. Because, he's sort of on this path throughout the episode of trying to, I don't even know what the right word is, redeem himself in the eyes of his... exactly. Yeah. In the eyes of his fellow soldiers. And he kind of has this moment at the end where he realizes that sort of every decision he made along the way, was the right decision. And it got him back where he needed to be and got Colin Hanks where he needed to be. And it was just this beautiful moment. It was I got cold chills, laying in bed watching it. But anyway, we can backtrack when we start at the beginning. I love this episode. I don't see it as filler at all.
No, this is one of my favorite episodes too, and I think for the reasons that it's so self-contained and so focused on this very particular incident that happened to them. But going back to the beginning, when Webster gets out of the hospital, he's been there for 4 months, and veteran of D-Day, Market Garden, he'd been there through the whole war up until that point, but got wounded in Holland, I think, and then came back after Bastogne and was treated like a replacement pretty much. He was like a pariah. Everybody, actually worse than a replacement, because all the guys are like, well, you didn't break out. You didn't come back and join us.
It's worse. It's worse. It's so fucked up.
Yeah, and they don't appreciate that he's like, well, I didn't know. I mean, nobody told me that's what I had to do. And I really sympathize with him, because it's those guys did it, and that was very, I completely understand why those guys did it, but to expect that of every person that ended up being wounded is insane. But I also see where they're coming from. It's like, you abandoned us, kind of, because they just came off of this horrific battle where they lost most of their guys. I think at the end of episode 7, they had lost over half, it was 70 or 80 guys in Bastogne. So it was fucked up. So they were very cold, and they were tired, and they hated everybody. It didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, who could blame them?
Yeah, and then they were and then Webster comes back in and it's like, oh, where were you? It's I think I get both sides, but I identify with Webster because he's just the war was a completely different place when I got wounded. I was I thought anybody would want to, stay in the med hospital for 4 months and just wait it out a little bit, which is a smart move. Yeah, I think, because who would want to go back to Bastogne? Fuck that, dude. Not enough winter clothes supply. No way he could have known that, but still.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but as bad as Bastogne was, and I understand it was, about as bad as it could get in that theater of war, but it's and I know it also depends on, I guess, what your fellow soldiers' opinion of you was and how they felt about you, because you could look at Buck, right? And so, Buck gets out of there. He's if I remember correctly, he hadn't even really been injured. I know he gets shot in the ass earlier in the show and comes back, but he bails out of things just because he's dealing with the loss of his friends, or whatever, and nobody gives him any shit. And I think that obviously Buck had this different level of respect from the other soldiers, but you're not hearing any of that toward him. I think you know what I think it is. It's that Webster's just too attractive. And,
he's too good looking, and everybody's like, oh, I don't like this fucking guy.
Yeah, he's too good looking and he's too intelligent.
Yeah,
and he's
it was
a
like
fucking college boy.
Well, he was almost like too intelligent for his own good. Like he knew it was a smart move to be like, I'm gonna wait this out until my time's up. But like unbeknownst to him, that was gonna alienate him from everybody in the company. And I think even until that point, he'd always been kind of an outsider because everybody was like, oh, you're a Harvard educated guy, and these are just, salt of the earth dudes from everywhere. And they didn't have that level of education. So he was always kind of like outlier, outsider. He didn't really fit into that group of guys very well, I don't think. So
Right.
So I think there's like a certain level of, but he did come back and he does prove himself in this episode, and I think he's a very interesting character. And talk
And
about him like he's not a real person, but
Yeah, his intelligence is what gets him. He's so crafty about how he handles every situation, even though it kind of starts off with him boning himself by having. But wait, we have to talk about the moment that we get Colin Hanks introduced.
Oh yes,
right?
Yeah, we have to talk about him. The fresh faced shithead that comes in. Out of nowhere.
Yeah, fresh out of West Point. Right,
Yeah.
and I have to point out the first shot. I think it's the first shot of him like standing in the doorway, or maybe it's, I think it's the first shot because he first shows up when Webster's at CP. Right, he's at the command post with Spears, Captain Spears, and Captain
and
Winters.
He's just gotten blown off by his old group of guys that are in the trucks. And he's like, yeah, second platoon will help you. And they like don't give a shit about him. So he's already like feeling
that was
like.
Really sad way to start the episode, but Webster's getting shut down by all of his old buddies. And but anyway, you get this first shot of Colin Hanks standing in the doorway, and it's like, honestly, I completely forgot he was in this show, so I squealed with glee when I saw him. But it's so funny that for whatever reason, the first thought that I had was, oh my God, he just looks like a director's son in a uniform, which is such a weird thing to think. But like, I'm standing there, and I know that his character sort of leaned into you wanting to hate him. Like it's, I mean, he played the role great. You know what I mean? Yeah. But he was almost acting like a boss's kid too, and it just played into it.
Yeah, and I like that he doesn't shy away from that. But it was, I agree with you when I first saw him. The first time, it was a similar reaction when I saw David Schwimmer in the first episode. It was like, oh, what the fuck is this guy doing here?
Yeah, what are you doing here? Yeah, and it's the same feeling that I have because you get, I don't know if it's really across these 3 episodes, but you get a lot more FaceTime with, and I say a lot more, barely, but more than you have in the past. You get some memorable shots and lines from Michael Fassbender, and also. You get a whole bunch of Tom Hardy, which was just fucking weird. But
I think that's in 9. I think that's in the next episode.
Oh yeah. You're right. But it's what you just said. It's like, for some reason there are certain actors in this show, and I think it's just that they're actors that I've seen in other things. Like a lot of the main actors in the show, I haven't really seen anything else. So to me, those guys are the actual dudes. They're the actual guys. And then you see these other actors whose faces they stand out. They're just actors. It's like, get out of here. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing in this? Get out of my show.
Yeah,
this is me time.
Yeah, and I think I know that. Yeah, that first scene where he walks in. And like Lipton's like recovering from pneumonia or something like that, and Webster's like, "Oh, is he okay?" And then Les is like giving him a blanket and shit. He's like, he's in the best possible position of anybody here. He's like snug as a bug on the couch right in here.
Yeah, he's got warm blankets. He's inside.
But then Nix and Winter show up, and Colin Hanks is like, "Oh, reporting for duty," like doing all like the West Point shit that he's been like trained to do. Like he's just like fresh out of West Point. This is like what you do for superior officers, and then just kind of laugh at him. They're like, okay, dude. And he's talking about when he graduated West Point. He's like, well, when did you graduate? He's June 6th. And they're like, D-Day? And he's like, yes, sir. And then Nix has this great moment where he just looks and he's like, okay, don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do but laugh? I mean, it's like, you can't even make that shit up.
Yeah. And then they, so after that, they have to head over to, because they're planning a night patrol to take this house that they know Germans are scouting in, and they have to take it and get the prisoners and bring them back, and everybody knows it's a stupid mission, but they have to do it because the higher ups want it. So him and Webster and Colin Hanks like head over to the house where Malarkey and all the guys are at, and they're on the street, running through the streets, and they're like taking cover. And then I love that shot because you see guys in the background just walking, like the vets. They're just like walking, like nothing's bothering them, even though you can hear gunfire distinctly in the distance.
And I'm assuming that's kind of a real detail, right? That you'd see that. I would imagine it. You come in as a replacement, or even as a replacement, or just or like if it's your first time in that environment, right? Like I would be fucking terrified. I'd be constantly trying to hide behind shit. And you've got the guys that have basically decided, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. And I like, why am I gonna? What's the point of taking cover if a fucking mortar shell is just gonna land on me anyway? So you get that sort of dichotomy there, which, to be fair, ends up kind of manifesting itself as a point with Potato Sack Guy. But
yeah. The only guy that's nice to Webster the whole episode, pretty much.
Yeah, man, just tragedy.
Yeah, but I think it's also too that Webster is like a combat vet, so he's like, I don't know this area, I don't know what's going on, I don't know where I have to take cover, so I'm gonna, not take any chances and just take cues from these dudes.
Nobody will fucking talk to him. I mean, it's not his fault.
Yeah,
Bullshit,
so he's
man.
he's not. So he's acting like a combat vet. He's like not taking any chances, and Colin Hanks is just kind of following his lead, even though he's a superior officer, which I like that dichotomy between their characters.
Yeah, they were really great. They were really great together because they needed each other,
Yeah, and they were both outsiders, but Webster kind of knows the ropes, and he's like, but he still has to call him like, sir, and all that stuff, which I just think is so funny because Colin Hanks looks like he's 18 in this episode.
Yeah, well, I guess technically he was right. If he's fresh out of West Point, he's Well, no,
he probably was.
No, he'd be like he'd be like 22, right? He's fresh out of West Point.
Well, depending on if he got like streamlined because of the war, because that's another interesting thing, how fast guys get promoted. Because even Webster at the beginning, it was like, where's a sergeant, or where's a Captain Winter? So he's like, oh, he's a major now. And everybody's like, but it's only been 4 months, so that guy got promoted so quickly, just because everybody was dying, like they needed guys.
Yeah, everybody's dying, and it's like if you do one valorous thing in combat, there you go, on to the next level.
Yeah,
which just goes to show kind of how, even though it goes to show how incredibly involved Easy Company was, right? That like in every major offensive of the war, because it's like every new episode, guys that are getting promoted because they're the ones on the fucking front lines of every major thing, and it just makes you wonder if the same level of quick promotion was kind of happening everywhere. But
probably not. It was probably a very unique, because I think they were a very prestigious group of soldiers, and I think they even make a comment about that in one of these episodes, just about like by proxy of like who they are, they get like chosen for all these really dangerous assignments. It's like it's always second platoon, it's never any of the other ones. We're always fucked over or something like that.
Yeah, and it sucks because it makes sense, right? Like as the brass, you, especially toward the end of the war when you're really trying to avoid fuck ups, like you want to send in guys that know what they're doing, that are going to limit the loss of life, that have seen it all. And the fucked up irony is those are the exact guys that need a fucking break.
Yeah, and that's like the worst. Yeah, and that was one of the things that like Webster was trying to be. Well, anyway, we'll get to that, but I did want to talk about. There's this really great shot when the potato sack guy gets bombed, he gets mortared, like just carrying a sack of potatoes randomly, like no rhyme or reason. He was just wrong place, wrong time, I think they say. But there's this great shot, and they hold on it for a really long time, which I think is really interesting. So it's the guy, I think his name's Bill Kean, like the only guy that like ever shows Webster the time of day is like happy to see him, and he gets blown up, and like Doc Rowe takes his dog tags, and then Michael Fassbender is like in the mid ground, like next to them. So Bill's in the foreground, Michael Fassbender's like in the medium ground, and then in the background you see off to the right, I think, Webster and Colin Hanks' character. And Colin Hanks just asks him, he's like, do you know him? He's like, oh, not well. But you can see Michael Fassbender's character in the foreground, like really like distraught. So he's like these two levels of interaction with this guy's death, who is like, you know, right in the center of the frame. It was just a beautiful construction of a shot. Like you see these two completely separate reactions to this guy's death. Like it's really really good shot composition. I just wanted to highlight that because I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. For some reason in my stupid brain last night, I was kind of obsessed as I was watching these episodes. I was like, you know what? First thing I do when I finish watching this is I'm going to look up what film stock this show was shot on. And then I forgot to do it.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it was like some kind of Kodak stock, but it's funny you say that because I've really noticed, like, no matter what remasters they do, they can never get rid of that low light film grain that's on the stock. Like, there's some shots
you don't think it's a choice?
No, I don't. It's definitely not a choice. Because there's some shots that look beautiful in low light, and then there's some shots that were just either not. And this isn't really their fault. Like, and I think the problem is that they're shooting film for TV, so the way that they edited things together and the way that they edited things together is like, this will look better on TVs. So
yeah, so that's something that never really gets thought about. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think they were shooting it like they were shooting a film, and a lot of times they were shooting in way too low of a light, and then they had to bump it up, and then they were up the exposure too much, and there's just this crazy film grain in like a couple shots, and then you look at a shot like a couple seconds later and it looks gorgeous, like totally perfect. So I think there was just like, it was just a limitation of the technology at the time, my opinion.
Yeah, wild. And with all the different ways that media can be viewed now and processed and compressed and blown up, it's like, yeah, I guess it's just not gonna look perfect on every.
No, but I like that too.
Thing.
It gives like a certain gritty quality, and I think they were going for that Saving Private Ryan, like desaturated kind of look. So you were already coming at a disadvantage, where a lot of the color was taken out of, so you didn't have a lot of. It was almost like doing it in black and white, so there's not a lot to work with if you don't have great lighting in certain shots.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be really confused when I finally get my passport and go do my World War II historical tour of Normandy and realize that everything is actually in full color and not gray and drab. I'm gonna be like, this isn't real.
Yeah,
I've seen the real shit.
And that's something I did notice too, and especially in these last couple episodes, there are certain scenes, especially towards the very end, where, or like in episode 9, where like the first part of the episode is like in total color, like nothing's desaturated at all. But when they get to the camp, like it's desaturated completely, like all the color's taken out of it.
Yeah, almost black and white, and it really adds to the hopelessness feel of it.
Yeah, it was a good creative decision. But anyway, sorry, back to episode 8. And so.
Yep, sorry.
No. We're oh God, we're already going so slow in this episode. We haven't even got to the main.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to talk about this show.
Yeah.
In any kind of timely manner. But anyway, continue. Yeah. Keep guiding us. You have to be the pilot of this shit.
Okay. So they get to the house, and Malarkey, who is I think first sergeant now of the platoon of guys.
Yeah, go Malarkey.
Yeah, but everybody can tell that Malarkey is like fucking done. Like he had just watched his friends, what are the guys' names? The two guys that got blow up in the foxhole in the last episode.
Oh, in the foxhole, yeah.
Sorry, I can't remember their names, but Muck and Pinkala, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
They had died, his best friends, and then Bill Garnier and Joe Toy got their legs blown off, and then Buck Compton got sent home with horrible PTSD, just couldn't do it anymore. So he's just completely alone. And he's just in charge of this company of dudes, and he's just like, he's obviously ragged, and they're in the house, and they won't let Colin Hanks go out on the patrol because he's like, Spears just takes one look at him, he's like, no, you're not going. like just coldly shuts
which
him
was
down.
awesome.
Yeah, which is great. But Webster has this bright idea. He's like, you know what? I'm going to get this kid on the patrol. I'm going to give Malarkey a break. It's going to put him in good. It's going to put me in good. It's like, it's, my grand idea for this patrol. And, but it ends up fucking over the other guy, Martin. Sergeant Martin.
Yeah, John Martin.
And there's this great moment where Martin comes in after getting the assignment because Malarkey had to drop out, or he dropped out because he's like, okay, if you want to go kill yourself, I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah.
But there's this great moment where Martin comes in because they're obviously not going to let the kid take lead of the patrol. He has no idea how to lead these guys, never met these guys before. So he's like, he's going to be an observer and Martin's going to take patrol. And there's this great look where Martin just looks at him. He's like, I fucking hate you so much.
Yeah, I remember that look. And I remember trying to figure out why, because he's looking at Webster with that look, right? There's like a moment of realization. And I don't, explain to me why he's giving him that look. I tried to rationalize it. I just couldn't quite figure it out. Like, what's going on there?
I think he had heard, he's like, like if you talk to Malarkey, like he'll give the position to you, and he's like thinking, he's like, oh, okay, I'll get to lead the the platoon of guys into the house. But the Winters and Nixon and Spears had no intention of ever letting him lead the platoon of guys in there, so they had to hire Martin to lead it instead. And then Colin Hanks' character is going to act as an observer and watch it from the machine gun nest behind the river, essentially.
Right, but how is that Webster's fault, though?
Because he was the one that put the idea in his head, and I'm assuming, I don't think realistically there's any way he would know that, but he must have heard something that it was his fault that this happened. And it's like, you screwed me over. Okay. Now I have to put my life on the line for no reason, and I know this is bullshit.
Got it. Okay, got it. I was one or two steps removed from making that connection, but I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that shot.
And I think it's too. There's like a lot going on in this episode, which is like, it's confusing. But yeah, he gives him, as soon as he walks in the door, he gives him that death glare, and Webster's like, "Oh, what did I do?" And he's just like, and he picks for his assault squad. He's like, "There's 4 other guys, and then Webster." He's like, "You're gonna be with me, right behind me, because you put me in this position."
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And I did want to touch on one like technical element, but I think we had touched on this in the past about the about the uniforms and like the makeup, like the dirt effects. And there's a great thing, especially in this episode. You can definitely tell who's like been in the shit for a bit, and then Webster and Colin Hanks are like fresh faced. Hair's perfect, like they're totally washed and everything, and then these other guys are just grizzled and look like shit and they're tired, don't want to be there anymore, and it's just a great little touch. And I think
Colin doesn't need a shower, and you learn pretty quickly too in that episode why everybody's so fucking dirty. It's like, obviously you're dirty from just running around and doing whatever you got to do, but then they have this scene pretty early on after Colin Hanks kind of comes, he has his great line where you're kind of starting to root for him because he weasels his way into
the patrol.
second platoon. Now, this is before he gets the patrol, but it's when he first meets Malarkey, and you're kind of rooting for Colin Hanks. You're like, okay, come on, man, like you can hang with these guys. And then he's like, well, are you gonna introduce me to the men? And it's like, oh god,
he just had to ruin it, didn't you? He just
had to ruin it.
He's like, well, everybody's asleep
kid
downstairs, and everybody else is up here. So that's what you got.
Yeah, just fucking. Anyway, what was it? Wait, why was I saying that? What was I? I was getting to a point where I had to. Oh, you see why everybody's so fucking dirty? Because I think like shortly after that, there's a mortar shells start coming down, and they all have to run into the basement. And it's like, you think about it, these old houses that haven't been cleaned in years, and like every time mortar shells are falling around outside, you're getting dirt and shit flying all around the room. So it's like, if these guys are getting mortared all day, like think about how quickly everybody would get dirty, even if you weren't out on patrols and shit. Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, stupid little detail. Yeah, we're never gonna finish talking about this episode. I'm sorry.
No, I know. Yeah, and I think even too is like even going skiing for the first time, like being out in the snow and like getting snow over, like, and I think this is just a thing. Like being from Texas, I didn't realize how dirty snow was. Like it looks white and perfect when you're on it, but it is just filled with dirt. Like when I got home, it's just like covered, and you just feel disgusting. So about a month of that, running through snow, dirt, digging your own holes, like you just be like drenched in dirt. And I was thinking too, when they had like those communal showers set up, it's like, I was like, dude, how fucking cold must that have been? Like it's set up outside, and it's just like probably running through a hose and a nozzle. Like that shit had to have been cold.
I remember steam. I think they were hot showers.
But even so, I mean, like, there's barely a flap on like the tent that they have set up, so you're still freezing. Like, no matter how hot it is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just like a respect for that, because it's like at best, I'm guessing that water is 60 degrees, 70 degrees maybe. You know, like if you're lucky. Yeah, because you know, it wouldn't take much for the steam to rise off if it's freezing outside.
That's true. Fair enough.
But yeah. Oh yeah, and then they have to you have to run into the basement from the mortar strikes, and they're just laughing, and all the new guys are like freaked out and they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, and Lieb got his the other guy, the Jewish guy, the one that's has a big part in 9. He gives Webster, I think, the most shit. Because they're both translators, and he's the one. Webster ends up saving him from going on the patrol. He's like, well, we don't need 2 translators on the patrol, and he's like just trying to like slowly like win back their respect, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, and we can talk about since I think it's kind of like one of the main points of this episode, sort of Webster's redemption arc within the guys. I guess the first step of it, right, is he gets this information just from being at CP about the patrol. Yeah. And all the guys are bugging him about who's going to be on it. And he doesn't want to spill. And he spills the names. And then the dudes immediately turn on him. Yeah. And it's just a fucked up. He's like, fuck it. He just throws this shit on his bed.
Yeah.
But it's like that was step 1, just to get him reinitiated, you know?
Yeah. It's just like, come on, we won't tell on you. And he's just like, okay, I'll tell you.
They immediately rat him out. Fuckers. Gotta love Leap Cat.
Yeah, they don't even play it subtle, but even like Malarkey doesn't give a shit. He's like, I got other shit to worry about. Yeah.
And it's almost like, too, that's sort of a moment of reinitiation for Webster anyway, because like he's just realizing like this to him, fresh back into it, like that's important information, and he's got this thing, and he realizes quickly that like none of it matters. Like these guys don't give a fuck. Like
yeah. And I think he even mentions too, he's like, yeah, no, these are not the guys that I, jump with in Holland. Like they're totally different, even in the span of like 4 months, just from what they experience in Bastogne. Like they're cold, tired, hungry, like they're pretty much animals. Like not to say that's what they were, but like they're almost like rabid. They're like even with Luz and the chocolate, and he's like the supply officer, like getting all the shit together. He's like, is that a chocolate bar? Give me that chocolate bar. Why does he get a chocolate bar? Like they're just like, they're just raiding anything that they can get off anybody. Like, you got a cigarette? Give me that cigarette. Like, just like, just scrounging whatever they can get. They're just like scavengers everywhere that they go. And it's nothing against them. Ravenous. It's just like, it's just the state that they've been put in. They're just in the shit. Like they're just survival.
Yeah, I mean, you live in a hole in Bastogne for months with no food. You're gonna,
you're just
pick up
like
some habits.
You're just an animal, and I don't mean that in any degrading kind of way. It's just like that's just the situation you've been put in, and you just kind of have to deal with it. And like nobody cares what you're feeling or thinking. Yep. But yeah.
But anyway,
we get reintroduced to Cobb, the company asshole, a couple times throughout this episode.
Is this the drunk dude?
Yeah, he gets drunk, but he's the one when they're taking the showers, like, and Webster's getting ready. He's like, how long's it been since your last shower, Professor? Like he gives him that line, like when he's like trying. He's like,
yeah.
He's like, shit, I don't need a shower, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, back to like the so they're getting ready for the patrol. Nobody wants to go on it because basically they're like, the war is almost over. Like why take any unnecessary risks at this point? Like what's the point? So all the guys are dreading it, and I do like all the details of them, like putting the lighter up to their like sights on their M1s, which I thought was kind of a cool detail.
Yeah.
And then
they just like clear the dirt off of them. I mean, what's even the reason for doing that?
I guess so. I don't know if it straightens the sight. I have no idea why they do that specifically, but it must have been an important detail for them to highlight it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Colin Hanks is hanging back in the patrol in the observation area, which honestly, when they stormed the house, I thought it was Colin Hanks that got like hit at the first time I watched this episode. I forgot it was some other dude.
Yeah.
But it's just yeah, so they end up taking the house, and like they're very elite unit at this point, but they're they've got across the river. 3 guys fell out of their boat like just getting across the river, so it's already kind of fucked up. So they're down 3 guys, and they take the house, they get the prisoners, and it's just a fucking shit show. Just like machine gun fire, mortars going off everywhere, and they're just trying to get back in their shitty little rubber boats like across this river.
I had a thought too when I was thinking about like the assault, right? It's like I get what you have to do, right? I get that there's like standard assault protocol, and
yeah.
but I can't help but think about the fact that so you've got Jackson, right? The young private, and his role is to throw a grenade through the door. Or I forget who shoots the first rifle grenade, but they sneak up there to the
Martin,
house.
I think. Like he's got like a rifle grenade, throws it up.
Right. So Martin fires the rifle grenade through the first floor window, and then Jackson throws a hand grenade through as well, and then runs up and opens the door before his grenade goes off and fucking blows himself up. But my thought was, with his own grenade. It's like if you had intelligence and you knew that there were only a couple of guys in here, I don't understand using explosives, period, because not only is it going to potentially kill the prisoners. I mean, can we just talk about this for a second? Like, I feel like there's pretty high odds that you shooting a rifle grenade and throwing a grenade into the building could kill the people you're there to kidnap.
No, I agree.
And then on top of that, it's going to alert the entire resistance that's in the area to start shooting at you. I don't understand the method of that. It's like if your whole goal is just to get a couple of guys, move in quick and quiet. It's at night. They're probably sleeping. Catch them unawares, but don't make a shit ton of noise. Like I don't understand that assault at all. There's some really stupid elements of that.
I think an element of that too is like, so they know that there's probably only like a couple guys in there, and I think a lot of those guys were just like, you know what, we're not going to take any chances. Like, there could be 3 guys in there. There could be 15. We have no idea how many guys are in there, kind of thing. And I think a lot of them are like, if we get a POW or not, we don't really care. We just want to get out of here, kind of thing. So I think probably the thought process behind that was just like apathy at that point. It was just like, you know what, we're just going to bomb this. If everybody's dead, we're just going to get the fuck out of here. Like, we don't give a shit. Like, kind of thing.
I get that. I would totally get that if they end up going on the second patrol. I don't get it on this one because according to Major, what the fucking old guy, I can never remember his name.
Colonel
Colonel Sink. So according to him, like, and I remember having the thought too when Winters is first briefing everybody on the patrol. I remember thinking like, okay, well, like of course this rests on Easy Company. Like it's because the whole goal of the patrol is to capture a couple prisoners and get some information about what the state of the German army is and like what they're doing and what Hitler's doing and whatever. And it's like, okay, first of all, so you're going to tell me that it's just up to this one squad of Easy Company guys to get information about what's happening with the German army? Are you kidding me? There's not, that intelligence doesn't exist already. And then I was like, okay, fair. Easy's been involved in the front lines on every single thing, I was like, okay, well, this is just what they're doing. So then that means that these prisoners are incredibly important. Like, it's super important to get a couple of guys and figure out what the state of everything is.
I think that gets explained later on when they're talking with Winters, and Nixon's talking about Sink and like what was his whole reaction to the thing, and he's like, honestly, like he's just like boasting to his like higher ups that like we had a successful mission. Like, I think.
Yeah. So you think it's just looking for success in a time where there wasn't a whole lot going on? You think that's more what it was about for Sink?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like winning of hearts and minds, or like even to like appealing to higher ups. It's like, well, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm, my company had just got these 2 POWs. It's just like, just looks good on paper. Like, I don't. So that's why watching this again, I really hated Colonel Sink. Like, he sucks. Like, he's just putting these guys in this situation that is awful, and he doesn't care about them at all. Like, he's not really concerned about their well-being in any way, shape, or form. To put them on this patrol for this thing that really doesn't matter a whole lot. And I think even Nixon says it's like when they got the info back, it's like, well, what do we really gather? He's like, I don't know, like a couple of mortar positions, where they have tea, Hitler's favorite color, like all this, like stuff that they already know kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I see your point.
So I think even if they did or they didn't know, I think it was just like, they're just whatever was the safest option in the given situation, like however they got out of there. They, maybe they had the cover of darkness, they could get out of there pretty quickly, and they know they had backup. Like, if they got out of there quickly, like they know that they had machine gun nests and mortars, like that were gonna protect them, kind of thing.
Right.
So even if they went in there like loud and dumb, like they could have gotten out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah, I get it. I see, and look, that for the record, it still kind of backs up my point, though, that it's like, okay, if they really don't care, I just don't get, I don't get the rifle grenades and alerting whatever enemy presence is there that you're there.
Yeah.
It's like, just why, if that's true, why take any unnecessary risks? I know that you're saying that's their thought process by using the grenades is like, we don't want to take any risks. We want to fuck up whatever's on the first floor so we can walk in with as little risk as possible. But
sure.
It seems like I would rather as a company or as a squad of guys that sort of have the leg up with stealth, right? I would rather take on a room full of potential guys where you can just open up on them than have to deal with, friggin' heavy machine guns and mortars and shit that get set up as soon as everybody knows that you're there. Like, I don't know. Well, that's whatever. I'm getting into bullshit, but we can keep moving.
No. Well, I think that's like twofold too. I think one, they're combat guys. Like, they're not like Navy SEAL like stealth guys. Also, like they're been on the front lines for months and months. Like, they know just like bang bang. Like, they don't know shit about stealth. But also, like, I don't know what the patrol protocol was. Like, I don't know if that was just protocol. That's just what you did. Because nobody
because I think it is, because it's what Winters says to them in the briefing. He's like, you know what you got to do? Rifle grenades, first floor window. Like, it seems like it's standard assault the building and take the prisoners protocol. I guess I just don't get it, but we got to move on. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I think it was just a very old school way of thinking about it, and we're like used to seeing like Navy SEAL like taking a house, and like it's very like calculated and particular, and like they were just like, fuck it, dude, we'll just do whatever we got to do to get out of here. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, anyway, like definitely a bygone era of like stealth. It's just it feels like a Call of Duty mission a little bit, like in retrospect. But I mean, it's also what happened too. Yeah, it's just how it went down. But anyway,
what happened? Jackson bones himself.
Yeah, he gets blown up by his own rifle grenade, which is like the tragedy of it all. It's just like, which is a theme that runs through these last 3 episodes. It's really not, I don't think there's a German that kills anybody in the last 3 episodes. Like, I think it's all self-inflicted, like they happen like within like it's either a guy accidentally kills himself or a drunk guy accidentally kills somebody, like, randomly for some stupid reason. Like, they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, you get the ugly end of the war.
Yeah, which is a theme that I really commend them on, because very few productions of any war material have ever touched upon that, because a big element of that is if you're getting a movie or even a TV show made about the war, anything that paints the U.S. in an unflattering light, or like even hints at the fact that, troops accidentally killed their own people, immediately gets funding pulled from them from the military. Like, they'll like, okay, we won't give you tanks, we won't give you this, like you gotta like paint this in a better light. Like, you can't talk about those things. And I mean, some movies have definitely gotten away with that, but by and large, the military doesn't like bad PR for themselves, like in any war. So I really commend them, because it was like kind of a brave thing to do at the time, because not many like movies or TV shows that ever really touched upon like dudes that killed their own guys. And they had the history of like this very specific instance to back them up. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, this could have happened. It like, this did actually happen.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts, man.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so the patrol is, quote unquote successful, but Jackson dies in this really horrible scene where he's just choking on his own blood and Doc Rowe can't save him. And I think I wrote something down like Webster has a really good monologue. And one of the things I like about this episode too is that Webster has these really great, really insightful, like almost Eugene Sledge kind of statements about war. Very dark and very like matter of fact, the way he talks about war, which I really like. The good juxtaposition from all the other guys that have been in episodes. But he has this quote where he's like, he died in a dank basement while his friends looked on helplessly, fighting a war that was supposed to be all but over. I mean, like, that sums up the episode pretty well, I feel like.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway. And then it kind of wraps up from there. So they'd finished the first patrol, and they come back the next day and tell Winters exactly what happened. And he's like, he's never pleased when anybody dies. Like, even if one guy dies, he considers it a failure, I think. Yeah. In most cases. He's very empathetic and very he cares about the company more than like the success of a particular, like if they retreated and didn't get anything, but everybody had lived, I think he would have been much happier with that outcome. Like, he's that kind of leader, which is very apparent at the end of this episode. Because they're amping up for the second patrol, which Colonel Sink is sanctioned because of how successfully the first one has gone. And everybody knows it's ridiculous because they're going to be on high alert now. Everybody's going to be expecting it. Like, you're just asking for it at this point. And he has this great moment at the end of the episode, which is one of my favorite Winters moments. It may be my favorite Winters moment in the entire series, where he goes to the guys, he's like, same plan, go in, nobody's happy about it. And he's just like, so that's why I want you guys to get a full night rest and report to me that you invaded the town, were unable to take any prisoners, and just lets them off the hook and is like, we're heading off the line tomorrow. And just, it's just like, and defies, he could get court-martialed at any point, get arrested probably, and he's willing to put himself out on the line for his men, which is one of his greatest, most noble moments in the whole show, I think.
Yeah, and it's like you could, as if his battalion needed any more reason to love him. I mean, that just puts him into legendary status.
Yeah, because he knew it was bullshit, and everybody did. But the fact that he was able to act on it and defy orders, it was a very ballsy move, especially this late. Very
ballsy and not easy to pull off too. I mean, you gotta know, and it just goes to show how happy all the guys were that none of them spilled about it.
Yeah.
And you get Colin Hanks, who to be fair, conducts himself valorously in his first mission and kind of earns the respect of everybody. And you see this kind of look come across his face where he's he sees, you can tell he's lived all 4 years of college in 2 days on the front, right? I mean, he's seen who these guys really are. He's seen what makes them tick, and he's seen what's important to them. And I feel like just by being around winners for 2 days, he learned more than he could ever learn at West Point about leadership and brotherhood. And yeah, it was just a cool moment.
Yeah, and I think it's really like, and that's another reason I love this episode too, because it really just like the winner's legend. There's just not a guy like him that, especially with all the World War II history that we've digested. I've never really read about another guy that was quite like him in the way that he was able to feel out his company and like assess a situation so perfectly. Even in a role that was so detached from the front lines, he was able to give the guys exactly what they needed, but knew when it was important enough to be like, you know what, like, fuck this, we're getting out of here. Like, this is not worth it. Like, he was smart enough to be like, you know what, like, no matter what you guys get on this, it's like a ego trip for Sync. Like, we're not going to do this.
Yeah. Fucking awesome episode.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the end, right? And you get this kind of moment with these kind of approving looks between, because I guess Colin Hanks technically gets a promotion, right, to first lieutenant and gets assigned to another platoon.
I honestly, I feel like that was like a bribe. He's like, you're not like one of us, so we're gonna have to like bribe you to like keep you quiet about what we did. Like, you're like an outsider, we don't know if we can trust you, kind of thing.
Interesting.
That's the way I feel about it. I don't know if that's true, but that's just the way that it seems to be portrayed in the show.
Yeah, what was the drunken line that the asshole guy said
Cobb,
to, yeah. Are you drunk, soldier? What was he saying to him? He's
yes,
like,
sir, I am drunk, sir.
Yeah.
Which, you know what, like, I'd probably be drunk too. I wouldn't be as vocal about it like he was, because I think in real life, this is an interesting history fact that I'll keep brief, but Cobb did end up in real life getting court-martialed for doing that, for being drunk and mouthing off to a superior officer like that. Yeah, he did end up getting court-martialed and dishonorably discharged.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But he was a vet. He saw everything that Easy did. Like, he was D-Day. He was even before. He was in Italy for a little bit. So he did Italy, D-Day, Market Garden, Bastogne, like the whole shit. So he was there through all of it. So, you know, no matter what he did.
He earned the right to get fucked up and mouthed off.
Yeah. So I know he's like not looked upon favorably on this show, but I think the real guy, like, I have respect for him still, even though he gets portrayed poorly in the show.
Yeah. What are you looking at, college boy?
Yeah. Every scene he's in, he's always an asshole, which I feel bad for the real guy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway.
So that's the end of 8, which I think is a very underrated episode.
Awesome sauce. Let me move on to. So we get a whole nice dose of young Tom Hardy in this next one, which was a trip.
Oh yeah, we get some great ass shots of him just fucking this German broad. I guess
this broad. What, he had to be like 18 in this? Now he looks so young.
He was like 20, 21, I think, and I think Fassbender was also. Like, they were
fucking
really
crazy.
Young. Like, this is before. Even Bronson and like all that stuff that ended up like making him like I think this was his first acting role, like big like film TV acting role ever.
Man, that's nuts. Now is this the episode where Spears starts stealing shit?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, because he walks in when Tom Hardy's fucking that girl, and he just walks in and he's like, where's all my stuff? He's like, oh, it's over there on the mantle, sir. And he just takes like this tray of shit back.
Yeah, it's like all this silver, right? And he's sending it all home.
Yeah, and that was a cool thing. Like in if you ever watch it, there's a documentary about Easy Company. The guys, all their interviews from Band of Brothers, they talk in length about that stuff. But the trophies thing, so especially this episode and the next episode, they end up taking a bunch of shit when they invade these German towns. And they were like, Winters was like very laissez-faire about it. He's like, if anybody's earned it, these guys have earned it, so let them take whatever they want. I don't care, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Pick
the
your
army
battles.
was like, that's like government property, especially with the Hitler stuff. They're like, like don't take that stuff. But Winters was like, you know what, like take it. Who gives a fuck what they do with it? You guys have earned it, kind of thing.
What they don't know won't hurt them.
Yeah, exactly. But that ends up being like a point of contention, and I think in the last episode. But anyway, sorry, there's so much to talk about. We can't get caught up on this now. But anyway.
Sorry.
So the episode opens with the German town is like, like rebuilding after like the shelling, and Nixon walks out. This is a very Nixon heavy episode, which I like a lot. You get to see more of him and like his thought process and like his just who he is, which I really enjoyed. And Ron Livingston does a really good job in this episode, just because you get to see the guy, and he's like, he's an alcoholic, and he's like kind of not that great of a soldier. Like he does his job, like he does it well, but he's like, just kind of there. But he's really like, he's just one of the guys, I think, and he gets portrayed really well. And he's just going through some serious shit in this episode.
Yeah, he's just not enjoying it,
Yeah, especially when it starts off, and oh god, oh fuck, there's so much to talk about. So, gosh, where do we? Well, what do you remember about this episode specifically? Because like they start off in the town, and he's like, oh, they work better when they have Mozart to back them up. He's like, Beethoven. That's Beethoven.
I think Sumner. I think one of the first times we ever talked about this show, I remember that being one of the first lines we quoted, or it was like, it was the way that we knew each other had seen the show. Is maybe we were doing something else, and there was like some kind of classical music going on. I was like, and one of us said, "That's not Mozart. That's Beethoven." We both knew. Yeah, great line. And it's funny too because it makes the way that scene is shot makes it seem like that line from Nix is like super important, relevant in the show, but it's really not. It's so it's such a moment for some reason. That's not Mozart. It's like, what's his point?
Well, I think too, it's like even in like the slightest sense, like it's just to prove that he's like a learned fella, like he knows what's going on.
He's a learned fella.
Yeah, because like there are moments where you like know that Spears is like a really smart guy, like really well read. Winters is, and even Nixon is a really well read guy. Like went to Yale, come from like probably a wealthy erudite family, somewhere in the Northeast. Like he's gone to school, like he knows his shit, but he like chose to come here and fight. I think he enlisted. I don't think he got drafted.
Right, and for the record, kick-ass scene with the string quartet. I mean, those guys are awesome.
Very mournful and very sad episode. It's probably one of the more depressing ones, especially because it deals with the Holocaust and all of those things. And I was just rewatching, and I was just baffled by what a great story this show is from beginning to end. Because even like in the wind down episodes, like the fact that Easy Company like went through everything they did could have been a show on its own. Like didn't even need like the last couple episodes, but even that they liberated a Holocaust camp, and then they raided Hitler's Eagle's Nest. I mean, like what? Like that's like an amazing story.
Yeah, it almost
story.
sounds made up. Yeah, it sounds made up. It's almost too insane.
Yeah.
But going kind of one thing at a time. You started with Nixon, and I guess this whole episode, he's just on this quest to find this particular brand of whiskey, right?
Oh, is that 69? Yes.
Yeah, Bad 69, which I have to try now.
I hope they still make it because I want to try it too.
Oh, there's a bottle somewhere. We got to do whatever we can do to get our hands on some.
Yeah. But yeah, I think from the first couple shots of Nixon, he's like not doing good. Like he's like distraught. Like something's up with him. Like he's not like happy-go-lucky anymore. and he's just like drinking himself stupid at this point. And Winters comes and Winters is always so good to him too. Like he never judges him, or like even for drinking, which he never does, but he never judges Nixon for doing it, which I think is a really cool thing about their relationship. But he comes to him and he's like, "Oh, you get to do the last jump with Easy. I wish I would have been there." He's like, "Yeah, you wish you would have been there?" He's like, "All the guys I was with got blown up in the sky." He tells him the whole thing, like all the kids got blown up with him, like, you know, like to echo the last episode in the war that should have been over already, and they're dead. Their CO's dead, so now I have to write all the letters home about these kids.
Yeah,
that
and you know,
probably knew nothing about.
This was crazy because I'd seen this episode several times, and I somehow in every previous episode missed that. Why he was so depressed and why he was drinking so much in this scene. It's like, holy fucking shit, because like you don't get to see any of it. You just find out through a brief conversation that he did this jump and fucking everybody died except him and a couple of dudes. I mean, I guess he had to eject from the plane and managed to survive, and he's just like, fuck it, if that kind of thing's gonna happen this late in the war, like I'm just gonna fucking drink myself stupid. Like what else do you do? Well,
and then you got the added thing, which I think it's revealed a couple scenes later, but his wife is also divorcing him and taking the dog. And taking the dog. And he's just going through a really, really rough time.
He's fucking going through it, man. And this is right after we hear, like, a couple episodes earlier, Buck's wife. It seems like they're, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if there's like if you know more about this kind of thing than I do, but it seems like a lot of guys were getting divorce letters toward the end of the war, and it's so fucked up. It's like, because maybe it had been just enough. Yeah, the Dear Johns, there had been just enough time that the spouses were just ready to be done with it, but you're so close to the end. Come on now. Yeah, hold it together, ladies.
And they probably knew nothing about what's going on, and like their limited access to like being able to write, and I mean, like I don't want to blame them, but like that's fucked up. Like, especially if you married someone, like that's insane. But I mean, there's no telling. I mean, because it gets revealed later on that Nixon went through a couple of wives after that. So, there's probably a level of like, he probably didn't write her, there's probably another element, but I mean, nobody deserves that. I will say that, like, especially in the midst of like combat, like, going through some serious shit, like, someone you devoted your life to. It was just like, it's peace, I'm out, I guess,
Yeah,
but,
man.
Yeah, it's just, it's fucked up, and he's just like, he's going through a really rough time, and then we get a shot of Perconte and this new kid, O'Keefe, that he's just shadowing, or he's like showing the ropes pretty much. Yeah, no, O'Keefe. Oh, yeah, no. O'Brien, yeah, exactly.
Good old Percani. Percani.
But yeah, he rips this kid a new one, because he's like, when are we going to get to see some action? Something
Dude,
that he probably
that kid's voice is a cartoon, man.
Oh yeah, because he's like, hope you're all you boys are happy to hear that Oklahoma's back on Broadway. And you're like, oh yeah. And then he sings that bit of Oklahoma. He's like, where the wings go? And then Michael Fassbender's like, oh, O'Keefe, you sit on your bayonet there?
Sit on your bayonet there, buddy?
Yeah. Just ripping him a new one.
Oklahoma.
I feel bad for a kid like that, because like, obviously, like I get where Perconte's coming from, like ripping a new one. It's like, yeah, you want to see front lines? Like, dude, I've been in the shit for 2 years. You have no idea what you're talking about. But like, he wants to get in good with the guys. He wants to be a part of it. And like, like he's just there to get torn a new one everywhere he goes. Like, he has no chance to prove himself. So he's just like, shit, like this isn't fun.
Yeah, it's the hypocrisy too, because all these guys were acting the same way when they first got there. Everybody was battle hungry, and it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's like the whole reason you signed up, and you've been amping yourself up through basic, and like, and you're just like, shit. Well, I guess. Now then
I
again,
don't want
to
experience it. You would think that this late in the war, like during boot camp, they would be. I know there's no real way to really prepare for what guys are going to say to you, but there had to be some kind of prep for that. Like, hey, these guys that you're going to get thrown into units with, like, they've been literally fighting a brutal war for the last couple of years. Like you got to be careful what you say around them, how you act. I wonder if there was any type of training in Boot for the replacements of just like how to not make your fellow soldiers just hate your guts. I don't know.
Yeah, I would hope so. Military is a bad track record of like mental health stuff, so I doubt that they were really worried about that. They were like, it's like School of Hard Knocks, like you'll figure it out kind of thing. But I'm sure like some of the COs and guys that have been there before were like, just be wary of, like, the guys are probably not going to want to know who you are. They don't care who you are. They don't want to get to know you because they've lost so many guys already, which is, such a horrible fact, but like I totally get. Like, you have to harden yourself to that because, like, and I think it's episode 7 they talk about it too, is like the worst enemy is like fear. It petrifies you to be able to be effective. So you kind of have to block that out of your mind, even if that means you're kind of an asshole, but you kind of have to be. Like, it's just like, it's the only way you're going to mentally survive a little bit. Like, cut yourself off from the world.
Man. Yeah, wild shit. But anyway, sorry. Back to the episode. Yeah, they're in this town. Everybody's stealing shit, and then they're going out on patrols, I guess, around the area just to see what they can find. And they're walking through the forest. There's a funny line where Picani's like, kind of reminds you of Bastogne, right?
Oh yeah.
The Buck smacks him on the head. Oh yeah, without all the the snow and the shit in your foxholes, and then the trees exploding all around you.
Yeah, it reminds me exactly of fucking Bastogne. Yeah, it's a great.
Yeah, but you get this moment where you're convinced they're about to get ambushed, and wait, was that? I guess no, it was right before. That's when they go deer hunting, right? Or are they currently deer hunting? I think that might have been before that with Shifty.
Yeah, with Shifty and Bull and a couple of the other guys. I think like Liebgott and Martin, maybe. But they're all like.
No, that happens in the next episode. That's Points.
Oh, that does. Yeah, you're right.
That's the beginning of Points, because that's when you find out Shifty didn't have enough points. Okay, sorry, I moved ahead. They kind of blend together for me.
Oh,
it's hard to do 3 episodes in a row.
I did want to talk about the beginning of the episode before we get into like the camp stuff. So with Nixon, there are a couple of things like you can tell that he's slipping, and one of them is when he walks into the office right after Roosevelt dies, and he's just like, "President's dead," and just quickly like leaves the room, just like very coldly, just tells him like, "Hey, the president's dead."
Holy fucking shit!
And then he's playing that card game with Harry and a couple of the other guys, and he's just like
Spears too.
Spears might be there, yeah. And he's just like out of booze, so he's just like shit. So he walks downstairs to like the liquor shop that's like right beneath where they're staying, and just busts through the window, just looking for booze, and then just can't find anything, so he just leaves.
He comes out. It turns out that it wasn't a liquor store. He'd broken into. I forget what he says it was. No. The bakery's in the next episode. Or no, the bakery's in this episode. It's just later. It's after they find the camp. But no, it ended up being like a medicine store or something, like a drugstore, and they didn't have any alcohol. So he just like broke into this guy's store for no reason.
Yeah. So he's just kind of like on a full. Well, he's not even on a bender. He's just like going through withdrawals, I think, because he can't find his VAT 69 anywhere.
He's just trying to stay. He's trying to stay drunk as long as possible.
Yeah, which is just like, dude. It's got to be a fucked up. But he's even bribing like the mail guy. He's like, if you can find me a VAT of 60, money's not an option. Like, whatever you got to do.
That poor guy who, in the previous episode volunteers for the patrol because he feels guilty that all he's been doing is delivering everybody's mail.
Yeah.
And, it sucks. It's like the only thing that brings him joy is giving guys mail, because he's, most of the time guys are so happy to get mail from home. But it's like at this point in the war, most of them... Well, a lot of them are getting Dear John letters and whatever, but fucking Nixon wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And the poor guy is just like, yeah.
But anyway.
So Spears, this is just like background stuff, but it's just like, so Spears mentions that there's like, so most of the Wehrmacht are like surrendering, but the SS are like ordered to like start a guerrilla campaign, and they just found out that 300,000 like German army soldiers had surrendered, but the SS are starting like a guerrilla war campaign to fend off the invaders. And Bull is like, "Oh, I like the sound of that, invaders. That sounds great."
Invaders.
But so they're definitely on the offensive, but then they have to deal with the crazy SS, and like, so they're dealing with like the worst of the worst if they come into contact with anybody at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Nixon with the old woman and the dog, like I can't remember exactly. Does he like break
that
into
was a
their
crazy
place?
scene. Yeah.
It was a really weird scene.
He's breaking into houses looking for VAT 69, and he finds this really ornate, clearly a wealthy person's house, and he's like, "Oh, there's got to be some here." And then he realizes, he finds the photo frame, realizes it's an SS officer's home, and then the freaking wife walks up. And it's funny because you get this moment of like, it's almost mutual respect. Like she walks up on it, or it's like it's respect that he has for her in a weird way. Even though it's like, obviously he doesn't respect an SS officer, he respects that he's in the home of a military man, and this is his wife, and I think he just realizes what he's doing and is like, fuck it, it's not even worth it, you know?
Yeah, just bails, which is a great callback to the end of the episode.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I have to pee. Can we pause for just like 5 seconds?
Yep, we are gonna take a quick potty break for the some diddly, and
Sorry,
you know, we will
listening.
return when you hear that fancy trumpet sound. We'll be back. All right, we're back. Sumner has been to the privy, the some diddliest of umsters.
I've been to the potty. I feel much better. I'm ready to talk.
Yeah, back at it. Okay, so we're talking about episode 9, I believe, right?
Yes. Okay, so Prakane and Luz and all those guys are out on patrol. So this is one of those things that was like a technical thing. I was like, so if 4 guys are out on patrol, like that was always something that I was like, is that true, or is it like just something that was done for the show? Like, would they just stumble upon like a camp like that? Like, because I figured that was what the higher ups would be looking for at that point. Like, I figured they would all be out like in unison, like looking for it. But it was like, if it was more dramatic, if like they found it and it's like, you got to come see this. I don't know what we found, like kind of thing.
Well, and you would think too that there would have been enough intelligence by then that they would at least that like the men would have at least been, because you know later on in the episode when Winters finds out that they've found a bunch of these and the Russians have found an even bigger one and whatever, you would think that information would have been divulged to the troops, like, hey, you know, heads up if you run into something like this, so you know what it is. But yeah, I'm with you. It's a little hard to believe. Yeah,
which is why I kind of read which I wish I would have read the book before we did this, because I was like, I'm really curious about that. Because I feel like the historical accuracy of the show has been pretty on point to this point. Like they don't tend to do things like that unless it's like more dramatically relevant. So I don't know. I'm torn on it. So I'd have to look that up. So I'm sorry I didn't. I wish I could.
No, it's okay.
Provide some
I mean, it seems relatively believable, you know. But that's the other thing too. How do they not have? As I know, aerial reconnaissance was a big deal, and this thing's out in the middle of an open field. You would assume that there had been some kind of aerial reconnaissance, and they would have known that it was there. But
because the way they frame it in the episode is like they were like one of the first ones to find a camp like that.
Which, maybe they were.
Yeah. Which I personally find a little far fetched, but I mean, like it's totally possible. Like it's just like, you know, especially with Nixon being an intelligence officer, albeit probably not a great one at that time, because I think he gets demoted early in the episode because he's like hitting the bottle too much.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, because even like Winters is like, yeah, did you hear me? You've been demoted, and he's like, yeah, whatever. He's like, what am I going to tell these parents about these kids?
Yeah,
and then they have that line where he's like, tell them they died heroes. He's like, you still believe that? And he's like, yeah, I do. Don't you? And he's like, I guess. Like kind of thing.
Fucking guess.
Which, you know, I kind of get his point of view a little bit.
Of course, especially when you've been through it from day one. But you have to tell yourself, any guy that's going to put his life on the line just by being here is a fucking hero regardless.
I agree completely. It's just like, just by proxy of wanting to do it, like yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know if
that's
I'd
enough
have
for me at
stomach
least
it.
as a homebody.
No, me too. Absolutely. Like, to put yourself through that much commitment is mind-boggling, especially now. But yeah, so they find this camp, which I don't even know the name of the camp specific. I don't think it matters, honestly.
They
It's
don't
just
even
like,
they don't ever say, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's almost like a metaphor for the Holocaust in general. It's their way of, I think, just dealing with the issue of the Holocaust a little bit.
Yeah, I thought there was a part of me that thought that maybe the reason they didn't say the name of the camp was exactly what you just said, was that they sort of used, which is another reason why I think you might be onto something with the way that it was discovered not being entirely accurate. Like maybe they just used this as a device to talk, sort of as just like a catch-all for all the camps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but...
Which I know they did find a camp. I just don't know if it was like in that exact way that is presented in the episode.
Got it. Yeah, but anyway.
But yeah, and then you're, obviously shown like what it's like, and kudos to the casting director because they found people that really look the part for like...
Dude, I couldn't stop thinking about that. How do you cast for something like that? Like,
Yeah.
how do you find people that are so emaciated? And I know a lot of it's makeup and like baggy clothes and, like you said, the desaturation of the whole scene. But some of those
Yeah.
guys were really, really, really thin. I mean, I don't know how you find that many people. And maybe it's
Yeah.
also about like framing and the shots, and like maybe there were really only ever a few super skinny guys in a shot at one time. But I couldn't stop thinking about that too.
And I mean, this is just a theory. I don't know if this is true. I don't know too much about the production other than like the main stuff. But I feel like they had to have gone to a couple of guys like, well, look, we need you to look really emaciated to make this work. Like, we need a couple of guys that look like they're about to die. So we need you to like starve yourselves in order for this to work. And
yeah,
I'm
crazy.
sure,
Maybe some kind of medical, medically watched emaciation actor training.
actors that are willing to go through it, which if that's true, I commend them completely. And yet if anybody had to do that for the show, I commend them completely because it's really convincing in the show. Like, it works really well. And because you need that.
Bananas.
It needs to look real for the impact to really have an effect, and it really does in this episode. I think it's really
and
well done.
I don't want to it's obviously incredibly difficult to talk about the Holocaust in any situation, and I don't want it to come off like we're trying to avoid talking about it by pointing out the details of how but in this show we talk about how movies are made and the way that things get done, and so I wanted to focus on that too, the challenge of depicting such a gruesome, horrible thing and still being respectful of it, and it had to be really challenging to make all this happen. Not just even just for the set designers to have to recreate something like this. God, man.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was one of the big takeaways for me, was like how they created that camp. Like, it's really well done. And
imagine emotionally what people were going through building that and making it look that real, and like all the prosthetics of the dead, emaciated people. Like, just, it must have been such an odd. It just must have been such a strange experience for the crew. I just can't even imagine.
And I think I read too, like the actors for the show weren't allowed to visit set until it was completed. So when they were filming the stuff and you see their reactions, that was their first time seeing the set completed. So I mean, like,
Jesus.
I mean, they'd obviously been there like waiting for like the cameras to get ready and stuff, but like by and large, that was the first time they were seeing this completed, to keep their reactions genuine.
Well, and that's best to keep the reactions genuine on one hand, but also just to limit how much time people had to be there, because man.
Yeah, it was really rough. So I did want to talk about one thing. Is like, this is an interesting moral question about the civilians in the town over. So, and I know that like in the show they're like really portrayed as like complicit in the whole thing, but
Yeah.
to me, there's a gray area with that for sure. And I think there's a couple of scenes where they're talking to civilians and they're like, we didn't know it was that bad. We didn't know what was going on there. We weren't privy to anything. And like,
Yeah, when
it's really-
Webster's got the baker at gunpoint.
yeah. And I think it's really easy to judge people in that scenario, but this is just my personal feelings. But like, and I don't think it's okay to, like be okay with what was going on there. But just thinking about what Nazi Germany was like at that point, like, even if they were to say something, even if they were to do anything, like, I just feel like, one, nobody would have listened to them. Nobody would have cared. But also, if you were like a kink in the chain, you would have gotten shot, like, point blank.
Yeah.
Like, nobody would have cared.
And you saw your friends and family and coworkers get killed all the time. Anytime anybody would stand up for anything. I don't think anybody can say anything about anybody that was involved in any part of that war or empire or occupation unless they went through it. You don't know what you would do. You can say whatever the fuck you want to say. You have no idea what you would do in that situation. No, and no one knew, which is why so many revelations after that war about how the German people acted in certain situations and how Nazi soldiers acted. I mean, it's so you hear about these atrocities and you hear about what they did, and it's so shocking. And how could anybody do that? And now, obviously, after decades of study and psychology and sociological study, we understand why those types of things have happened across history. How people can be, I forget. There's like a term. There's a term for it. For certain factors, sociological factors that can lead people to commit atrocities like this.
Yeah,
that can be a whole episode all on its own. But
right, it's
unless
like a
you
metaphor
were
for like
in
mass
the
psychosis or something.
Yeah. It's not, and it's not even. It's tough because it's not even. I wouldn't even call it psychosis. It's like It's something that happens gradually over time to people, right? This kind of. Well, anyway, like I said, it's a whole episode on its own. But I'm with you. Obviously the local townspeople were painted in a sort of complicit light, but I truly agree with you that nobody can say shit unless you really went through it, because everybody had a different experience. Yeah,
and I agree. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like the people of that town got dealt a hand, and like even if they did have a say, like they're not going up against like 30 guys. They're going up against a whole government of soldiers. There's just no. Even if you did, and people had families, people had livelihoods. They wanted to live their life in peace. Didn't want to be involved, so it was easier to be like, put the blinders on and not think about it or pretend like it wasn't happening.
And Poland was a perfect example of how that shit can end for you, because like Poland obviously is the first country that was occupied. The resistance, there were like, if I remember correctly, like 3 or 4 resistance uprisings, right? Where like enough Polish people got together, the resistance gained enough traction to make a move, and like 3 different times they were crushed. And it's like, if you were in any other town, you're like, man, like that's as much as anybody could resist, and they can't do it. Why the fuck would we?
Yeah, and the situation like well enough to where it's like Nazis who got a stranglehold, and like you're this small town in the middle of nowhere that nobody knows about. Like you just happen to be there. Like you just happen to be there, and I'm not. It's just like, it's where it gets so complicated. It's like you're not advocating their decisions. You're just like, I identify and I understand why you couldn't say anything or why you couldn't speak up. Like it's like. It's futile. Like there's nothing you could do to remedy this situation that's happening other than a war. That was the only thing that could have saved you.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks for everybody. It is what it is.
Yeah. And then after that we give that awful scene with well, I'd say awful, but it was true. I mean, like the guys, the prisoners have to leave the camp, and the guys are trying to give them food and water and like trying to feed them because they think they're really, really hungry and like have to get their strength up. But the army doctor guy was like, he comes up and is like, you have got to stop feeding these guys right now. Like if you don't, like they're going to die. They're going to like overconsumption. Like they're going to eat themselves to death pretty much because they're so hungry. And like, and they didn't have any place to, like, they just got sprung on them. They have no idea where to put them. He's like, you have to put them back in the camp. Like, this, what we have to do. And Liebgott, who's Jewish, they have to tell him, like, hey, you have to tell these guys to go back into the camp until we can find a better situation for them. And then he gets this really great scene, but it's really awful where he's just like, he has to tell them what's happening and they're crying, and like he starts crying. Like it's so brutal. It's such a brutal scene.
Yeah, and they're incredibly distraught, and I can't imagine being told you have to stay. But also, I imagine that juxtaposed with the pure joy of being liberated. Like,
yes.
I'm sure that it was mixed emotions for those people. Well, and also too, you don't get to see a whole lot of the cleanup process, but obviously Colonel Sink declares martial law. I don't understand necessarily how that applies to the civilians being tasked with coming in to clean up the camp.
I think it's just because they're like technically in charge, like they've taken over, so now they're like the government, so they can declare martial law over like a specific area that they control. Right.
Yeah, but
anyway, yes.
What I would hope is that the civilians that came in to clean up in situations like this could do enough work cleaning up the camp, and I can't imagine going through that. Like you said, as a local townsperson who maybe was complicit but didn't really have a choice in the matter, now you have to go, do your part in cleaning this up, and just what an absolute nightmare. But hopefully over time, as long as these people had to stay in these camps, hopefully the conditions got a little bit, no matter what, any extra time you're spending in a place like that, regardless of what you've seen there and what you know has happened there, is just every moment you spend there is a tragedy. So it's just a fucked up situation, man. Yeah,
and like I sympathize with the townspeople, but I'm also glad that the guys that have gone through what they've had to go through are just not the ones that had to do it. I'm also like, it's like, this is just like the reality of the situation. Like they're just also a part of the war at that point. So it's like, like it's fucked up. They didn't have anything to do with it, but it's like, they're also just part of the war effort. Like they just got drafted into the military at that point, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And you get this epic scene where Nixon's walking through and he makes eye contact with the SS officer's wife, and she's in the center of it all, cleaning it up.
But that she's like, she knew what was going on. And not that it's her fault either.
Knew. Oh, no.
Yeah. Wait, what'd you say?
I was agreeing with you. Yeah, go ahead.
No. It's just like, it's almost like a metaphor for the towns. Like you knew what was going on, but you're the wife of an SS officer. There's nothing you can do about it. Like you couldn't make that situation any better, even if you tried. She was there because she loved her husband, and they were there because they loved their country and their town, and they were just subjected to it, unfairly. But I mean, it's just the nature of war, I think. Like I would much rather have them do it than, our guys, I guess.
Yeah. Overall, though, kudos to the showrunners, to everybody involved for really, how difficult must it be to, in an hour, really not even an hour, more like 40 minutes, show so many perspectives on such a horrible thing, and in a way present a microcosm of what everybody was going through at that time. Like wild ass shit, man.
It's hard to portray such a significant event like that in a short amount of time, and I think this is a huge success and very well done. And that it's juxtaposed with Nixon's thing with, and it seems trivial, but it's not. Him getting divorced from his wife and like the dog and the kid and like, his life's falling apart. But then you see people whose lives are totally destroyed in a completely different way, and they're just wrecked.
A little perspective.
Yeah, and it's like it gives you a little perspective about the gravity of situations, and it just changes your perspective very gradually and very effectively throughout the episode. Very well written, and great episode. Very dark and sad episode, but
yeah, an episode I was not looking forward to watching.
Yeah, it's a tough watch, but very well done. So anyway, that moves us on to 10, our last episode of the series.
Dude, the grand finale, which again, somehow, beyond all reasonable understanding, I had never seen before.
Yep. Yeah, this is the one. And I think a lot of people miss this one on rewatches because they go for like, the I don't know, like I want to say flashier episodes. Like, the more high octane, like, but these last 3 episodes, I think they make the series what it is, in my opinion. Cause it's like, if you don't stick the landing, like, I think there's like a certain argument to be made. Like there's like a detraction from the show. Like if you just peter out in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
But it really sticks to land. It makes everything so effective, and you really, in a very like small microcosm way, like you really understand the psyches of these guys in the last 3 episodes a lot, and the nature of the war and how brutal and awful it was. And this episode, I think, is one of my favorite episodes. It's up there with Currahee and Crossroads and Bastogne and like all those middle episodes. Like this is one of my favorite episodes, I think.
Yeah, it's, man, I was just blown away every other scene. Like, and what really blew me away was I don't know what's CGI and what wasn't. Like, obviously the Eagles Nest stuff had to be mostly CGI, right? Or set design. Like, what do you know about?
Well, this is tricky, but I think they filmed some of it in the Eagles Nest. Like, they gotten permission somehow.
No fucking way.
And then, like, other stuff, like, I think they built on a soundstage. So I think there's like a mix and match, but they gotten licensed because I think it was a museum for years and years by that point, and they were able to come in and like do some stuff in there, but stuff they weren't able to like tear down and build around, they had to build sets for, which honestly, it seems seamless to me. Like I never notice when I watch this episode what's real and what's not.
So what ended up happening? Like, what is the current state of? So obviously, the Eagles Nest, this insane estate that Hitler built up at the top of a mountain. Who apparently was also afraid of heights. Is the irony there? He builds this incredible, ornate, golden palace up there. What is? I'm assuming it's still there. I'm assuming it's been turned into some sort of museum or something. Like, what's the current state of that place?
Yeah, it's currently a museum, and a lot of those things are so like the area that they sit in when they're drinking champagne, like looking over the beautiful Austrian sunset.
Yeah, I've seen photos of Hitler and different officers, I feel like, from that angle.
Yeah, and I think they even touch on like Goering and like Goebbels, like their houses were like right down the road. Like this is like their big like ski lodge. Like this is where all they
it was Naziville.
Yeah, and so they just they had these huge areas where they just hung out in, but that area is all like closed off and like, well, there's like a ledge now with like glass and like a railing that you can't fall off on, but in the show it's just like a stone ledge and like you can like look over and like fall like like if you like accidentally fall or something.
Yeah, it's and the whole countryside, I mean, is so gorgeous. That part of Germany and going into Austria, just beautiful land.
And I think most of it they shot on location, and whatever they had to green screen on, they had second unit people do for the green screen. So it's like, it's all authentic, but like some of it had to be green screened in, I think.
Oh yeah, we got to go back to the hilarious nature of them trying to clear the roadblocks that the SS had put in the way. Just these like rock slides, and they're just shooting it with bazookas and hand grenades.
Yeah.
Fucking hilarious.
And they're just waiting for the engineers to show up to blow it up. And they're trying to get there before the French do, which I love that detail.
Yeah, can't let those fuckers get there first.
Yeah. But I was thinking about that too, because they were bummed because they couldn't storm Berlin because the Russians got that.
The Russians called dibs.
Because they were dealing with Stalingrad, and like I think the most deadly battle I think in history. I don't think it's been topped. 2 million dead in Stalingrad.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, the Russians earned it.
Yeah, absolutely. But honestly, like I would much rather be in the Eagle's Nest. Fuck storming Berlin. That sucks.
Yeah, and I'm sure as soon as Easy Company got there, they felt the exact same way.
He's like, you know what? This is fine. I don't give a fuck about Berlin anymore.
Yeah.
You got to stay in Hitler's penthouse. This is amazing. Drink all his or Goering champagne and we'll get to that because that's one of my favorite parts of the episode.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they're blowing up the roadside and then they get into there, and when they enter the town, there's this really like weird, eerie, like uneasy feeling when you get there because I think Nixon
there's nobody there.
Yeah, it's like, but even Nixon sets this up is like you have to be SS to even like live here. Like you have to be like fully assimilated into the Nazi regime. So like whoever is there is the most evil of evil. Like they've done some bad shit to even be there.
Yeah.
So there's just like evil in there, but like there's also a thing. It's like you're watching them walk around this town. Like there's like a certain sense of like dread because you're like, this is from like a totally bygone era. They're storming Hitler's like palace in the middle of nowhere, and it's just like they're just these regular people, and they're gonna go live their lives and like end up dying somewhere. Like it's just like I don't know why like that melancholy set in, but like when they're like getting all this stuff from the town, like taking all their stuff, like I always feel like a little sense of like a pit in my stomach. Like it's weird that I don't know how to describe it. But do you know what I'm talking about a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Just like the banality juxtaposed with the epic nature of what they're doing is that like it's like you sort of it's almost like perspective starts to come into focus. I think what adds to the eeriness of the town, right, is you get because they're getting to walk through this. They're basically getting to walk through Hitler's imagination, if you think about it that way, right? It's like Disney World for Hitler. It's like this is his vision of what the world should be. This like gross ass looking gingerbread town with Nazi flags everywhere, and it's like they're walking through it and it's empty, and it's like you're walking through the empty soul of evil, and they're gonna conquer it, and it's almost borderline anticlimactic because of everything that they've been through to get here, and it's like you're walking through this empty, evil snow globe, and you're gonna take it, and then you're gonna go back to your life. Yeah, just really bizarre set of circumstances for those guys, but it had to be satisfying.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But I think you described it perfectly, exactly what I was feeling. It's just like this is what we fought and died for, and now we're here. Like it's just like it's eerie, it's weird. Like this is what millions and millions of people died for, is what is on this top of this hill somewhere in the middle of
this
Austria,
fucking psychopath's vision of the world. This is why everyone is dead.
Yeah, it's just it's so weird and creepy, and like you just like just like it's like humans don't live here. Like it's like these are like they've been like brainwashed into being like aliens from like a different planet. Like
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe the irony is, too, that, and the reason it feels so eerie is it was basically a museum already. Do you know what I mean? It was, the whole town wasn't even a town at this point. It's essentially just a monument to what could have been. So it's like you're walking through, it's, so I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that is just a feeling that they all must have been having and probably struggled to describe it. You know what I mean? It
feels like you're being cursed, like walking through that town. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's just like some weird magic is just like taking over you, and you're just like it's like cursed for even being. I don't know. Like it's just like it's weird, like psycho stuff. But
and it's like it's because of what it represents, which is the purest of all evil. But it's this sheen of gloss, right? Of Yeah, that just that's what makes it eerie, is the juxtaposition of those two things in the same place.
Yeah. And I think it's also just the fact that they did that. It's so mind-boggling to me. Like the fact that they were there. Like what everybody like is like, what was World War II about? It was like, it was in that town. It was right there. Like all that like chic bullshit, like worthless, like prestige, like none of it matters. Like it was just worthless. Like all of it. I mean, it was valuable, but I mean, like it was like in the grand scheme of things, like totally worthless in terms of like the lives lost.
You get some great screaming comments from Webster as they pass by the surrendering army that alludes to some of that. I think that might have been in the previous episode.
Oh yeah, where he's like where he's like yelling at them. He's like, "This is what you died for, you Nazi fucks!" Like he's just giving them shit, and it's like totally deserved. Because those are the guys that knew what was going on, and like even if they were, you know, probably but they knew. I mean, like, but they couldn't do anything either. Probably like the lower ranking guys, but the SS guys knew what was up, knew what was going on. Yeah, and they didn't give a shit. They were just like, "This is what I got to do," and like that's the most bizarre thing. Is like even regular military dudes that rise up through the ranks and are just like in the shit. Like you have to believe, I think, is like a human almost, like that there was some humanity in there. Like it couldn't be just total apathy, but like how can you even wrap your head around the Holocaust and all that? It's like it's fascinating. Like you just can't.
You know, I've talked about this so much with my dad, and I've even, I think, talked about it with your dad too. Just it's come up different times, but how important it is to a human being. Like this almost trumps anything that anyone does in their lives. At our core, it seems like the most important thing to the average person is not to have to admit that you're wrong. For whatever reason, admitting that you're wrong is something that is so difficult for people to do that they will radically alter their lives and the lives of those around them to not have to admit that they're wrong. I think that that concept manifests itself in cults and religions. Like Kaylee and I just watched this Mother God mini documentary series that you really need to watch it on HBO, about this woman who starts this cult. And it's like you see this with cult after cult after cult, and if we can consider, you know, Nazi fascism as sort of a cult in a way, right? It's
absolutely.
You get a lot of people that get sucked into this world. First of all, by nature of how quick and effective Blitzkrieg was, and how quickly Hitler took ground, and you get the high leadership believing in it, right? But you get this thing where it's like you get deep enough into any cult and you would rather go along with whatever's going on than have to admit that you've been living a lie. And I think that's where the snowball starts to form in every, and I'm not going to compare, you know, Nazis to every other cult. I'm not saying that. I'm just.
But the basis of that I think is true in all cults. Like how it starts.
You would rather go along with it than admit that you're wrong and you've wasted time and made the wrong decisions. Because it's like the longer you're in it, the more those things stack up and the harder it is to admit that you're wrong.
Yeah, and I even think in the Nuremberg trials where they're convicting those Nazi like officers, the biggest thing that they said the whole time was like, I wasn't at fault, I was just following orders. And like the bureaucracy of the Nazi regime is why they were so successful. It was just, you know, lack of accountability, I guess. Like nobody had to take fault for what was actually going on.
And that's like, why corporations do evil shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's like, are you going to take on, you know, like City Hall or like, you know, whatever. But I mean, like, even for like those German civilians, like had nothing to do with it. They were like, I didn't know what was going on. I was just doing what I was told to do. Like, that's the whole thing. And like, that's how it gets started. Like, it's about power. It's all about power. With cults, with regimes, with governments, it's all about power and whatever they can get people to go along with. is how they just
and the way that
get away
you do
with
that
shit.
is by giving people small amounts of power, because people get addicted to that, and then they identify with it, and then when you wrap your identity into your power, you can't admit that you're wrong because you lose that power, and it just stacks.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's it for like as simple as it is. Like I think it's just that simple. I think humans are just that simple when it comes to like manipulation, you know? And it's like, I can take you from your shitty life and make it better, even though I'm going to make it way worse, but you can't see that now because I'm going to make it better. And people believe
we're
that.
short-sighted. We're short-sighted because of our survival instinct, because of our nature and wanting to protect ourselves and those around us and our families, and then you know, it takes somebody to start it. I'll say that. It takes somebody fucking crazy enough and delusional enough and charismatic enough. That's the thing, right? With every cult and whatever situation, there's somebody that has to have the perfect mix of charisma and charm and insanity and psychosis and ego, narcissism and ego. Yeah.
Narcissism is a better term. I don't think ego is always a bad
You know what?
thing.
And the word the narcissist gets thrown around way too often these days. Like, I feel like with social media and fucking TikTok culture, like anybody who does something selfish, everybody's like, "Oh, you're a narcissist." It's like, no, no,
but it doesn't always apply.
No, that word needs to sit in a place reserved for actual fucking narcissism. Like, look it up.
Yeah. No. Like, Hitler's a narcissist. Like, he's a crazy psychopathic person. Because we watched, I made you watch Downfall, right? That movie about Hitler and the bunker in like the last couple days of, in the movie. And I think basically what happened, like nobody really knows for sure, but that movie is this would be like a great, like a awful, like horribly depressing double feature, but like watching A Band of Brothers and then watching Downfall right after it.
Oh,
like,
God.
It'd be a great, like, World War II double feature. But, like, in Downfall, like, you really get to see the insanity of Hitler and the fanaticism of people at his higher rank. They were totally brainwashed, willing to kill themselves for him. Like, no sense of self-preservation. Like, in cases in the movie, like, their children's self-preservation. Like, there's no future without the Third Reich, National Socialism, all that shit. Like, people are that fucking insane about what Hitler was doing, and they believed it to the point of destroying themselves. And, like, it's like a metaphor for the whole country, like what happened to everybody, the whole world. And it's just, it's fascinating and depressing and awful that it happened, and I don't know. It's just like, you just can't wrap your mind around it no matter how many times you talk about it.
Yeah, if there's anything positive at all that you can take away from something like that managing to happen, it's that at least we get the history lesson. At least it makes it so unlikely for something like this to ever happen again, because we have all of this information now as human beings about how easily this can happen, how quickly it can get out of control, and how to spot the signs of an evil fucking dictator. I can think of one right now who's about to probably get elected president again because we're fucking insane. But anyway, that's another conversation.
I think it's a rough combo. But anyway, this episode focuses a lot too on this whole points system. We just alienated half our audience with that statement.
Well, you know, I can do some editing if I have to. I couldn't help it.
No, you know what? I'm good. Leave that in. Fuck them.
Yeah. Hey, or is editing or is self-editing like that taking a page out of Hitler's book?
That's true.
What I'm saying?
It's just leaving all the good shit.
Right.
Okay. But anyway, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite parts of the episode. So it's they had raiding Goering's mansion, and Winters wants to give Nixon a big surprise, so he takes him down into a Goering cellar and shows him his whole alcohol like cellar, like best
Yeah.
wines, champagnes, whiskey, any liquor that you can imagine is in there. And just the look on Nixon's face is priceless. It's just a beautiful moment.
The clouds open up, the sunshine pours through.
Yeah. Just because it's like everybody's celebrating. He's like, like get everybody from Easy and have them take a truckload. Like we're not leaving any for anybody else kind of thing. It was just a beautiful moment of like solidarity where he's like, I know you're alcoholic, but you know what? Fuck it, dude. I'm here for you.
You've earned it. You've earned this.
It just, Winters is like through thick and thin. He's just a great friend to Nixon, like to the bitter end. Like he doesn't care, which I love that about him in their relationship.
Yeah, they're great friends. We get way more of Winters' morning swims than I would ever want in an episode of Band of Brothers. We get plenty of morning swims with Nixon, but it's cool. Or plenty of morning swims with Winters, but it's cool. Nixon, offers him this job back home with his family, gives him an option to not do the career thing, because I think he knows deep down that Winters doesn't really want to. He doesn't want to make this a career. As good as he is at it.
But it was so sweet that he was just like, I just want you to stick around, like be around me.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, it was such a beautiful thing. And like, even like at the end where he's like, I'm going to go fight in Japan. Like, I'm going to go on the front lines. Easy doesn't need me anymore. He's like, well, I'm going to follow him there. Like he was just willing to do that. Well, especially, his life was falling apart also, but he was willing to go there for his friend, even though he hates war, obviously. Not a fan of being in the military, but he was willing to do that for Dick is amazing. Like just an amazing friendship. Like it's such a cornerstone of the show, I think.
Yeah, it really is. They're great. The actors have great chemistry together. I think they portrayed their characters really, really well.
Which is where we have to talk about the point system, which is like the focal point of the episode, I think.
Yeah, I think the episode's called Points.
Yeah, and so...
But what is it? You need like 85?
85 points. So the whole point system is basically like, if you garner enough points throughout the war, you can go home. Like you need 85 points to be able to be shipped home. And even the guys that have been there since D-Day don't have all the points, so it's really difficult to get all the points to go. So
yeah, you almost need like multiple Purple Hearts, and it's nuts.
Yeah, multiple accolades. Like you have to be like, high-ranking officer with multiple things, whatever. And so the guys are pretty much fighting to get. Well, not even fighting, but like, if they don't get the points, they're going to be shipped off to Japan, which is, pretty awful fighting, as we know now. So, like, that's, like, the whole thing of the episode is, like, well, we're going to train to get you off to Japan now because you're ready to fight this war. Even after these guys just won, Europe, which is insane to me. Like, that's such an insane thing to ask those dudes to do. And
you can see it on their faces too, and you get that cool scene where they're all watching footage from the Pacific for the first time and seeing what those guys are. Yeah, seeing what those guys are going through.
Which I was drinking sake earlier in solidarity for VJ Day.
Yes, VJ Day.
But yeah, it's and we've hinted at it earlier in the series, but. Yeah, I mean, fighting in Japan is vastly different from fighting in Europe. Like, it's much more guerrilla tactics and stuff that those guys are not ready for. They have no anticipation of what that's going to be like. And luckily, they, spoiler alert, they never have to go there. But, that's the tension through the episode. You don't know if they have to go and be a part of that.
Yeah, what a buzzkill, after such an incredible weekend at the Eagle's Nest or however long they were there.
Imagine being hungover from a party at the Eagle's Nest and being like, okay, get ready, you're going to go fight in Japan now.
Fucking insanity.
Fuck that, dude. Okay, so I'll try and power through this a bit because because
I'm at 8% battery. Yeah, we gotta.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Okay. Shit. Okay, so, what the fuck was I want to talk about? Um, oh shit, I can't even think anymore. Goddamn.
I mean, I think we've covered a lot of this episode.
Yeah, but okay, so Tom Hardy's character dies pretty quickly.
Yeah. We got to talk about all the self-inflicted wounds here. Yeah.
Yeah, he dies, like in a drunk driving. Well, he's not even like the guy that's driving the other truck, and they veer off, and he dies accidentally, which is like a thing that plagues Easy through the most of this episode. Guys dying, and I think even Winter states this at one point is like, it's like guys with combat experience and having nothing to do, just sitting in a place like guys are dying left and right, like, which is so crazy, and which is such an important thing that I'm glad they touched on, and it's really really powerfully done. But so the guy that shoots those guys, like in the middle point of the episode, that's like a big point. The guy that goes nuts on the road ends up killing a British officer, an American soldier, and then wounding that guy in the head. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but ends up wounding a member of Easy Company in the head, which is so insane. And he had like just gone nuts with PTSD.
And I think he was drunk as fuck too.
Yeah, he was going off the rails. And sorry, I'm trying to power through this, but it's like, so they get that guy down and they get him and Spears is like, you know what, like he's not going to die. He's like, he's going to die. He got shot in the head. Find us a brain surgeon. They find a brain surgeon in town, bring him down. And they find a guy and then they beat the guy down. And there's that great moment where Spears is pointing a gun at him and everybody's like, oh shit, he's going to shoot him in the head because we know all the stories about Spears, but he never does.
Yep.
Never does it. And he's like, clean this guy up. And I think even Sink at one point later on in the episode's like, you should have just shot the asshole, saved us all the paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, dude. See, I didn't even realize that those first two people he killed on the road were officers, were soldiers. I thought he had killed two civilians.
No. Yeah, one of the guys was the British officer, and then the other guy was like an American, I don't even, like infantry army guy.
Jesus,
but anyway,
yeah, just because they wouldn't give him any gas or whatever, right? I mean, fuck.
Yeah. And then, so that all works out, and basically, and then they have to decide a guy that they want to send home that doesn't have the points, but like they think deserves to go home. So they send Shifty home.
Which was an awesome moment.
Which was a great moment, and which is like, if you don't know the history of Easy, it's like, it's weird. It's like, oh, we don't know Shifty that well. But he was a sharpshooter guy in 7. Like he had been there like through the whole thing, and he was really well loved, and everybody liked him a lot. And he just didn't have the points. I think he was furthest behind because he never got wounded and didn't have any accolades. So they decided to send him home because he was so well liked through the company.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
Tragically enough, he has that great moment with Winters where he's like, I don't know how I'm going to rehabilitate back into the world. And he's like, well, just do the best you can. Like, there's no way you can describe it. And then he gets into a car wreck the next day, like on the truck out, and breaks his pelvis and like a couple of legs and shit. Like, it's just horrific.
Yeah, he gets
horrific
fucked
accident.
up.
Yeah, and they were just like, oh shit. Like the guy that was the luckiest out of the company ended up getting fucked up. Like it's just like a doom and gloom like surrounds this whole episode.
It's time for Easy to go home, man. These guys aren't doing well stuck here, and it takes a while for them to finally get to go home, right? I mean, but you get this badass scene of them playing baseball in the shadow of the eagle's nest.
Yeah. Oh, I did want to talk about one thing before we get to that.
Oh, okay.
That scene where Winters is with the officer, where he's like telling him, he's like, oh, I want to go to Japan, and he's having those flashbacks to the war while he's in the office.
Oh yeah.
And he's like talking about, and like there's a moment where the guy is like, it's like, honestly, I took this meeting out of regard for your military record, and like I appreciate your service, but he's like, I think your company needs you here. I'm not going to let you go.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
Which I think it was just a great moment where he just like, he acknowledges, like, he's like, if you're just trying to get stars on your helmet, he's like, you've done enough. Like, don't worry about that. Like, you're good right where you are.
Which is obviously not what it's about for him, but
yeah, and he says that too. He's like, oh, I just think I could be useful elsewhere, and he's like, nope, you're good here. But yeah, anyway, sorry. The baseball ending that you were talking about.
Oh yeah, it was a cool way to end the show. See these guys getting to do this classic American pastime and get kind of their first taste of going back home, and then you get all of these stories of them returning to their mundane lives. I love that Bertani became a mailman. Yeah, Liebgott drove his cab.
The most fascinating one was where Buck was like, he ended up being a prosecutor.
Yeah, and prosecuted who's killer?
Sirhan.
Yeah, fucking crazy.
Which I was like, holy fuck, when I heard that. That was so insane.
Yeah, man. No wonder he got such a focus.
And then the one about, I wrote down the most, well, this sounds fucked up, but like the most memorable ones out of the ones that they like talk about. But the Luz thing, where he had died in 98. I had read that he had gotten crushed by an AC unit. Like he was like a mechanic or something, and he like...
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, he had gotten through the whole war without getting shot once, and got accidentally crushed by an AC unit. And 1,600 people attended his funeral, which is insane. Like,
yeah,
very well-liked dude. And then Alton Moore, the guy that got away with Hitler's photo album, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that was an awesome little side story there.
Yeah. But I did write one thing too, is like, it's really cool with the actors in the show, and then you got the real guys obviously that get revealed at the end of the episode, which is really cool.
Yeah, which was awesome. I did not expect Lipton to be who he ended up being. He's
got the perfect hair. Like, I was really impressed
man, that dude's a stud.
Yeah, he's just like a perfect hair. He's probably like 80.
Much better hair than Donnie Wahlberg.
Yeah, he does. But I was like, I wrote down this thing, and I don't know if it relates, but I was like, I wrote down this thing at the end. I was like, actors are authenticity surrogates, representatives like a democracy of like the story that they're telling. So they're like the politicians of like the story that they're telling in like a historical thing. And I was like, I feel like it's really true of this story.
That's some deep shit, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was just like, and I think all the guys that were in the show did it perfectly, especially watching like the things. And love the show. I love you.
Agreed.
And,
it's a masterpiece, man. I really enjoyed getting to watch it critically in this way. And it's hard not to want to do the Pacific, but I just know it's not gonna be as fun as this was.
And you know what? If you twist my arm, I would totally do it.
I know you would. And
how are you doing?
To any of, so I'm at 4%. 4%. So
okay, good.
Usually when it gets down to the last couple,
thing, I was like trying to like get every
dude.
Bit of
you are the man. You are the man. And this is a rough part to wrap up that quickly, but
there was so much shit, dude. I was running through like a 10-page monologue at the end there.
Yeah, no, you fucking killed it. And if we need to come back and have an extra episode just to wrap up any extra details, we can do that. But
hey, fans, make it happen. Give us $100, we'll do it. Beer money.
$100, we'll do it, because we know you can't live without this content.
But I would do like a retrospective of the whole series and just like talk about the whole thing, because I have all the notes now. I could just like talk about every episode.
Yeah,
again.
You honestly could write a book yourself probably at this point.
Oh, dude, fuck no. I haven't even read any of the books, but like I really wanted to for this, but I was just like it was like too daunting of a task. But I was just like, I was having so much fun watching it, but I was just happy that, especially at the end of it, I was just like the Lewis, Nixon, and like Winters thing. I was just like, I was happy that I was doing this with you. Like it was like, you're my true friend kind of thing.
You're my homie too, man. There's no other brother that I would rather band together with to watch Band of Brothers.
Yeah, we banded through this whole thing for the entertainment of 6 people, and I really appreciated doing that with you.
Yeah, same here, buddy. And to those 6 people, if anybody has listened to this, you we really don't deserve you. Obviously, we will be back next week. We're going back to movies.
Yes.
We're going back to our bread and butter of something that, well, I guess it'll be something I've seen. I'm excited. It's going to be hard to follow up Band of Brothers with something good, but I'm on it.
Yeah. We should just watch Downfall. I'm just saying.
We could.
No, that would just be depressing. Just like,
oh, shit, I'm down to 3%. We got to wrap it up. This has been One
let's do
Guy's
it.
Seen It. And remember,
every TV series is better with at least 10 beers. Because you need 10 beers to watch every episode.
Every World War II simulation is better with alcohol. That is that is for sure.
And a buddy by your side.
Band of buddies.
Band of buddies.
Band of two buddies. Yeah, I love you too. We'll be back. We'll be back next week. Peace.
Peace.
One guy's seen it, the other guy hasn't. First guy's gonna tell the second guy all about it while they both get drunk.